Welcome to Local 24 this week. I'm Richard Ransom. Hope you've had a nice weekend so far. We're here every Sunday at 9 a.m. and 10:35 p.m. to bring you the real story behind the big stories. It seems like we always have a lot of ground to cover each week, and it's no different today, so let's take a look. In a moment, it was a big sports week, and former Local 24 sports anchor and current Bryan City media host Jessica Benson will be with us. She is devouring all this talk about the SEC expansion and what it may or may not mean for the University of Memphis. We'll get her unique take on that in a moment. And while all of that is serious stuff for sports fans, news this week about the pandemic is deadly serious. The Delta variant increasing its grip on the Mid-South. From our state and local governments to our hospitals, are we doing what needs to be done to push back against this new strain of COVID? Finally, consolidation chatter. A city councilman and county commissioners say it's time once again to talk about merging Memphis and Shelby County governments. Why do they think this has any better chance of passing now than it did 11 years ago when it failed miserably? We will get to all of that. But first, the aforementioned Jessica Benson and Local 24 political analyst Otis Sanford are joining me. Jessica, before we really get into this, I want you to let viewers know why you are so immersed in a topic like conference realignment. You seem to know a thing or two about it.
Oh man, for me, conference realignment hits very personally and very close to home. I grew up in a household where my dad worked in college athletics and was at one point the commissioner of the Western Athletic Conference. He ended his career as commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference before retiring 2 years ago. But as a kid of the WAC, I really came to know the first origins of a 16-team conference back in 1996 when the WAC made the decision to expand to 16, crossing 9 states, 5 time zones, with Hawaii included there, and then ultimately it only being able to last 2 years, as not everyone was able to get a big enough piece of the pie in that case. And then seeing from the quote unquote, and I'm not supposed to use this word, mid-major, that was a bad word in my household growing up, but to see how the ripple effect ended up taking hold of the conferences that are now considered to be a part of the Group of Five, the Mountain West, the Sun Belt, the AAC, and with the AAC hanging right there on that bridge trying to, or have been trying to prove that they should be considered the Power Six. Now, obviously, we're seeing with the SEC ultimately Friday making that move to officially have Texas and Oklahoma plan to join the conference in technically 2025, but the hope being that it will happen sooner for those two schools and the SEC. Conference realignment has been a big part of my life for a big time, and I'm happy now that I can sit in a space where I can enjoy the chaotic energy from afar and just kind of ride this wave and see where it goes.
Otis?
Yeah, and I want to follow up on that, Jessica, and it's great to see you today. This obviously makes the SEC even more powerful than it was, especially for football. But what impact does this have, do you think, on the Big 12? And as Richard said in the opening, what impact does this have for the University of Memphis?
Well, we'll start with the Big 12, and you have a situation where, Otis, while we have billionaires racing to space, we have had college conferences racing to get to 16 teams now for quite some time. And this goes back to when Mike Slive was commissioner of the SEC and Jim Delaney was commissioner of the Big Ten. And it felt like a race between those two of who it would get to first. Now we have a situation where both of those commissioners no longer there. The late Mike Slive did so much for the SEC conference and then ultimately was taken over by Greg Sankey. He's now leading this charge where he wants the SEC to be that primo conference and to first get to 16. I think we're having conversations now where is 16 the end? Is he ultimately going to push for his conference to be a super conference, to perhaps exist in a space outside of the NCAA one day? So if you're the Big 12 and the remaining Power 5 conferences, really, you're trying to catch up and figure out, okay, how do we survive in this situation? And then taking it to a space like the University of Memphis, those schools, you don't want to ultimately be one of these schools that could potentially get left out down the road. If you're looking at 4 16-team power conferences, that's 64 schools. And you're going to have schools fighting to be included in that 64. Memphis would certainly be a school that could make a case for itself, but it's not a surefire in for someone like the University of Memphis. So they want to make sure that they are not one of these teams that ultimately gets left behind if this is the path we do indeed go down.
Well, Coach Ryan Silverfield was asked about all of this chatter earlier this week. Let's play that soundbite, and I'll get your reaction on the other side of it.
We knew it was coming. Is it going to occur, and how will it affect the University of Memphis? I don't know. Have I had some conversations with Dr. Rudden Laird at very minimum? Like I said, it does me no good to sit here and stress about what's going to happen in 2025 right now. Right? I'm trying to get through tomorrow and to make sure our guys show up for their workouts and do what they're supposed to be doing. So, am I a fan of it? Look, I'll let you know in 2025. How's that sound?
Yeah, take it one day at a time is probably some pretty good advice. So we know that ESPN had a great time when they were here for game day. Yes, it's easy for a fan base to maybe overestimate their importance, but the U of M program really has turned some things around in a significant way. And the announcement this week of a $50 million upgrade to the Liberty Bowl, how does all that play in, do you think, down the road to the benefit, or maybe not, of the University of Memphis?
It all plays into the University of Memphis being in a better spot today than they were back in 2016, when there were rumors circulating on if the Big 12 was going to expand there. And there is certainly some irony now in this situation, where you have the reports this week that the Big 12 has accused ESPN of trying to collude with perhaps the American Conference, where it's the AAC now looking to perhaps poach Big 12 teams. But back then in 2016, if you'll remember, Memphis didn't even make the 11-team finalist, or the 11-school finalist list for Big 12 expansion. Ultimately, the conference decided to pass on expansion altogether at that point. But since then, Memphis has taken strides in football, not only reaching the Cotton Bowl, but showing what happens when College game day comes to this city, and how the city was able to shine on a national stage. They've also made vast improvements academically. That's something President David Rudd really put an emphasis on during his tenure. And you have the University of Memphis making the U.S. College World Rankings at 126, being the second-ranked public university in the state of Tennessee. All of that factors in. And of course, you still have the storied history of the Memphis basketball program. You have the national relevance of Penny Hardaway. All of those things will help Memphis build a case that they should be included, that schools like Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, perhaps a Boise State from the Mountain West shouldn't be the only, quote, group of 5 schools that these power conferences should be considering if it's that side who's going towards expansion.
Let me get your thoughts on something that's a little bit more imminent, and that is the upcoming athletic seasons around here, college football, college basketball, and what are you looking at as we're going to talk about the pandemic here in a minute, but this virus continues to move, continues to cause problems. I know everybody wants to be back in the stadiums this fall. We're looking at a huge crowd for the Southern Heritage Classic in September. That's only about 5 weeks from now. What does your gut tell you about whether we're going to be able to have full crowds in stadiums and in the FedEx Forum if we don't get a handle on this virus?
Well, Otis, my gut rumbles a little bit, and I think it's absolutely natural for all of us to feel that way if you are keeping track of what is going on with the Delta variant. And we just saw it at SEC Media Days and at media days across the country, commissioners taking a stand of this year when it comes to vaccination rates for players and teams. They are trying to make sure that these teams get an appropriate vaccination rate where you're not risking a situation like last year where you're having weekly cancellations, delays. Now they're throwing out words like forfeitures. I would love to see, if it's a situation with Nick Saban in Alabama, if you're really going to ask them to forfeit a game, let's say an early game against a Mercer type opponent. I'll see how that plays out when we get there. But even myself, selfishly, this is my first year where I would have an opportunity to attend a college football game as a fan. And I would love to go to the Ole Miss Tennessee game in Knoxville, Lane Kiffin's return on October 16th. But man, October 16th is a while away. And it certainly feels like it might be a little dicey if we are going to have full crowds. And even if we are, will I feel safe going in a situation like that? It's still completely to be determined.
Yeah. Time for one more question. I got to get your take on Zaire Williams as a choice, the Grizzlies' choice in the NBA draft. What do you make of that? It's gotten such mixed reaction. I don't know what's your take?
Mixed reaction is a perfect way to put it. I think Zach Kleiman pointed out on draft night, there sure are a lot of rumors that circulate leading up to the draft, aren't there? And I think that's where, if you're a Grizzlies fan, you're looking at a situation where you traded up, you traded away a popular player by all means, and one of your best players in Jonas Valanciunas. And so you had a player that you were identifying to take at 10, and I think there was a lot of assumptions with Bouknight and Moody still on the board. Hey, the Grizzlies are going to have their pick between those two. Instead, they throw a bit of a curveball, go after someone like Zaire Williams, someone that they have been tracking since his high school career. He certainly did not have an overwhelming freshman season at Stanford, but there were so many factors that potentially led into that. He dealt with a death in the family, the COVID situation that Stanford particularly had to deal with, moving off campus, playing an entire season away from their campus. We'll see what it's like when he has an opportunity to truly develop and to be put in a system where he has a chance to develop. He is a true switchable, athletic, long wing who could be a bucket getter. 3-and-D, you'll hear that term thrown out all the time in terms of what teams are looking for. He has the potential to be that. Now, you're obviously going to hear the if he's able to get stronger, if he's able to end up producing as a shooter in the potential that he appears to have. Those are a lot of ifs, but I think the Grizzlies have earned the right to take a little bit of a risk at this point, a swing, if you will, and someone who might not be ready day one to play, but someone in 1 to 2 years, we could be looking at reevaluating this draft and saying, of course, he was a top 10 pick in the 2021 draft. I'm also really intrigued by them trading up to take Santi Aldama at number 30, a name that many people weren't particularly familiar with unless you followed the Patriot League really well. But he put up fantasy-like numbers in the Patriot League and averaged 20 and 10 this last season. He's another one who's just an intriguing potential player. That's all you want to have the opportunity to say after draft night is, I'm intrigued, and I think there is a lot of potential when it comes to both of those guys.
All right, well, I hate to end it there, but I want to thank you for your time and giving us some insight on the Memphis athletic scene, because it's been a busy week for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica.
Absolutely, it never stops.
All right.
See you guys.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about those COVID numbers. Not a good week for that. We'll be right back.
What should we do?
I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, we can have the money as soon as the same business day.
Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need.
3 years ago today, I got my second pancreas transplant. Each person within the walls of the Methodist Hospital provided me with exactly what I needed. You showed me your humanity that I so desperately craved. Thank you will never be enough. I love you all. Can I hug you? I wouldn't be healthy and here if I didn't have y'all.
Injured? Call 683-7000 and let NST Strong help you get paid.
You've seen it all over primetime. But this fall, I'm coming to daytime. Nick Cannon, a new daytime talk show.
We're the Justice Society of America. We can't quit. We're never going to stop fighting to protect the world from people like you.
Don't you teach these children any manners?
Stargirl. New episodes start Tuesday, August 10th, only on the CW.
Now more than ever, our national forests need us. Fires, insects, and disease devastate our forests each year. Visit arborday.org and see how you can help.
We were doing so well, but now you have a lot of people saying, here we go again. I'm joined by my panel now, Local 24 political analyst Otis Sanford and political consultant Susan Adler Thorp with Thorp Communications to talk about COVID and the news we had this week about the virus. Cases are way up in Shelby County and throughout the Mid-South. Deaths are way up. Every category you look at, it's not good news. And you had a variety of reactions to it. There's a lot of concern nationally, specifically about the South. A lot of folks with the CDC concentrating their efforts here. Governor Asa Hutchinson seems to be listening to some of that. The governor of Arkansas declared a state of emergency this week and also is asking the state legislature to come back for a special session. He would like them to rescind the part of their ban on mask mandates to not include schools so that school districts can do what they feel is necessary when it comes to protecting our kids. Then over in Mississippi, Governor Tate Reeves stirring things up when he made this comment, calling the mask recommendation from the CDC foolish. Listen.
Tuesday's change in the CDC mask guidance is foolish and it is harmful. It has nothing, let me say that again, it has nothing to do with rational science.
So I guess he's changing his title to Dr. Governor Tate Reeves because he seems to know more about the medical profession than the doctors do. Otis?
Yeah, Tate Reeves got a degree at Millsaps College in Jackson in economics, and that's fine. That gave him a career in banking, and he became the state treasurer before he became the lieutenant governor and then governor. He did not get a degree at Johns Hopkins, and he knows nothing about the science here, and he's using politics to replace science here, and he's endangering people in his state. I give tremendous credit to Asa Hutchinson, who is doing the right thing. Kay Ivey over in Alabama is doing the right thing. Unfortunately, we have a lot of other Republican governors surrounding us, Richard, who are not doing the right thing and think they know more than the scientists on this. It is a shameful day, and that's why these cases continue to go up, and the deaths will continue to go up, and we all will suffer.
And then on Friday, Susan, Tennessee's Governor Bill Lee said he was pushing for a limited state of emergency in Tennessee, but he also stirred things up himself this week when we learned some comments from an interview with Dr. Michelle Fiscus. Of course, she was the head of the vaccine unit within the health department, and she gave an exclusive interview to a national television station. She was asked about the governor's comments about children in particular and whether they are at risk or should wear masks with the COVID variant spreading so quickly here. And she said they're going to be, again, talking about kids, sitting in classrooms for 7.5, 8 hours a day. They're going to be riding on team buses. They're going to be in locker rooms and in close quarters with one another. And they're actually going to have less protection than we had last year, which is true when you think about that. And when he went on Fox News and said pretty much to that effect about children not being that much at risk, she was asked what was her reaction when that happened. She said, yeah, I was extraordinarily disappointed. We have a pandemic that has critically injured almost 200 children, and the statement on Hannity is that children don't get COVID, and that's science. That was the furthest thing from science. So you have, again, what Otis was talking about, these politicians who seem to know more about science than the scientists do.
Well, I think that the lowest thing you can do in politics, and I've come about to realize this in the last few years, the lowest thing you can do and the worst thing you can do is to use the public health as a political tool. I mean, we elect these politicians, including, and I'm referring to Governor Bill Lee, and we put them in the public trust, and not to value the public's health and then value it only secondary to his political position, I think is really shameful. I mean, to say that Tennessee has a limited state emergency, what is a limited state emergency? This is an emergency, and it's an emergency especially for our children. How do you sacrifice some of these kids who haven't even had a shot at life? If you don't care about your grandparents and you don't care about Uncle Joe who's 70, that's one thing. But children, protect our kids, for crying out loud. Politically, it's shameful. And what I think our politicians just don't understand, if they do understand it, they're not being honest with us, is that apparently this Delta virus is just a new iteration of the old virus, but it attacks us more severely and unmercifully. You know, I was thinking about it. It's a good thing, I guess, when during World War II, after the United States invaded Normandy and Omaha Beach, it's a good thing we didn't just say, hey, we won this battle. Let's just pack up and go home. That's essentially what's going on here. We have another battle to fight, and we'll have more battles to fight in order to win this war against the virus.
There's also a lot of controversy, you too, about what role employers as well as healthcare providers should play when it comes to requiring their employees to get vaccinated. And recently we had St. Jude Children's Research Hospital say that they are expecting and requiring their employees to get vaccinated, as will the Memphis VA Hospital, due to a national order for all VA hospitals around the country. But not required Baptist hospitals, Methodist Le Bonheur, Regional One Health, St. Francis Healthcare, not requiring that of their employees. The latest poll that came out today estimates that 25% of healthcare workers have not been vaxxed. And I just want to get your take. Those 4 hospitals right there in healthcare groups, they employ a lot of people. They also care for a lot of people. Right. What is their obligation here to require their employees to get vaccinated like we're expecting everyone to do? Otis?
Well, very briefly, they all need to get on the same page. They do get on the same page on some other things. They get on the same page when we talk about the economics of the healthcare finances in this community. So they need to be in unison here. We can't have 1 or 2 hospitals doing one thing and 3 or 4 others doing something totally different when we're talking about trying to fight a virus. We have been on defense, Richard, with this virus all along, and we don't know how to get on offense because we're not in tandem here. So I think until we work together on this, that includes the business community, the education community, and everybody, we're going to fight a losing battle here.
Susan, 30 seconds. Why can't the CEOs of these hospitals in the metro area get together, make it a unified thing? Because apparently one concern they have is they might lose some employees if they're forced to, or if they're required to get a vaccine, and just make it a unified effort.
The hospitals in our community have never had a unified effort for anything, so I would be shocked if they did. But I think the message that they are sending to the community on the one hand, and all the news reports that their staff is overworked, that the nurses are underwater with all the COVID cases arriving, and on the other hand, they say, they tell the people, don't bother to get a shot. It's a mixed message, it confuses the public, and it's shameful.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. When we come back, we're going to visit the issue of consolidation again is rearing its ugly head. Should Memphis City government and Shelby County government consolidate? At least one city councilman and one county commissioner say yes. We'll talk about that right after this.
So there you were, finally making some headway when the whole landscape changes. That's when you can use an old friend like Speedy Cash, your bridge over troubled waters. Speedy Cash, we're here for you, online and in-store.
I still think I could sell the car myself. This is going to take all day. And I have big plans. Brunch, bubble bath.
At WeBuyAnyCar.com, selling your vehicle is always fast and fair.
And a nice pedicure.
All done.
Don't trade in or sell by yourself. Go to WeBuyAnyCar.com now for a free online valuation. Get in, get out, get paid.
Baby's cold.
When it comes to blankets,
Thank you.
size matters. Same goes for your law firm. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
So there you were, finally making some headway when the storm hit. That's when it's nice to know Speedy Cash is a good friend to have on a rainy day. Speedy Cash, we're here for you, online and in-store.
Back with my good friends Otis Sanford and Susan Adler Thorp to talk about consolidation now. There's an effort afoot by Memphis City Councilman Chase Carlisle and County Commissioner Reginald Milton to once again bring up this issue and perhaps put it up for a vote. There's a lot of involved with that. We should just tell folks real quick, in order for this to pass, city voters vote on this separately from those who live outside the city of Memphis, and they both have to agree. And the last time this was done, almost 12 years ago, it barely passed the city of Memphis and failed terribly among voters in the suburbs and unincorporated areas of Shelby County. This is what both of these elected officials are having to say about this real quick. Commissioner Reginald Milton telling the commercial appeal, people know there is something wrong. I think all of us, we look around, we love where we are, we care about it, but we realize there is something wrong. Other cities are doing something. We need to look at options, look at possibilities. And a very similar message from Chase Carlisle, who said, if you ask the majority of the public if the status quo is working for them, delivering the prosperity and growth they deserve, is that happening? They are going to tell you that the status quo is not working. Change is inevitable. Susan, I'll let you take this first. What do you think is going on here? There's like $53,000 now behind this Jobs Now PAC, according to the commercial appeal that is going to be pushing for this effort. Do you see it having any kind of legs with the public?
$53,000 is a nice little chunk of money, but if you'll notice that $50,000 of it came from one person, and that's Chase Carlisle's brother, Chance Carlisle. So, I mean, my attitude about pushing for consolidation is here we go again. You know, first of all, I'm going to tell you with most certainty, it will not pass. It will not succeed. It has to have not just a majority of the county, it must also have a separate majority from the city. If consolidation were to pass, everybody needs to know that Shelby County will wind up with 7 governments inside of Shelby County instead of the current 8 governments. So all the suburban municipalities will remain. The only governments that will merge will be the county commission and the city council and the 2 mayors, and we'll have 1 mayor. So, you know, it reminds me of the cicadas coming out. Every 17 years, a cicada comes out and it jumps out of its shell, makes a lot of noise, and then it goes away. Well, that's what consolidation is, and here we go again.
I don't know how to compete with that, Otis, but I got 20 seconds.
And I agree with that completely. Earlier, in other consolidations, the schools were in the way. Schools are not in the way, but it's still not going to pass.
Well, they look at cities like Nashville, Louisville, Jacksonville, but they all passed their consolidation efforts back in the 1960s. Right. You just wonder what kind of future it has. All right, we'll leave it there. We'll probably talk about this issue in the future. We'll be right back.
Here at TwinSpires Sportsbook, we love all sports as well as second chances. That's why we offer all new TwinSpires players up to $1,000 if the first bet you place with us doesn't win. Just use promo code FREE1000 when you sign up, and you'll get up to a $1,000 risk-free bet. With playoff basketball, baseball, and golf majors all at your fingertips, this is the offer to jumpstart your summer. TwinSpires Sportsbook. Download the app and bet today.
Need cash? TitleMax offers 2 ways to get it. Get cash using your car title. Go to TitleMax.com, enter the car year, make, model. See how much you can get. TitleMax also offers an unsecured loan. No title required. Check out TitleMax.com when you need more cash. Check out TitleMax.com and shop us for rates. Get up to $2,500 without a car title, or up to $6,500 using your car title. And you'll say,
I got my title back with TitleMax.
Get your title back with TitleMax. This summer, the competition's heating up.
I hear you're pretty good, Lisanne.
That was just me saying that.
Oh, that's true.
And the game is on.
Shark Tank! Shark Tank!
25 words or less.
Weekdays at 9 a.m. on Local 24.
I could tell you that I'm not a person who wants to die. I'm not the strongest every day, but I'm not the weakest either. And I won't break.
Wednesday night, August 11th on ABC. You think it's easy being a superstar? You have no idea.
The email is rransom@localmemphis.com. We'd love to hear from you about today's show. My thanks to Susan, Otis, and earlier Jessica Benson for being with us. And thanks to you at home. We'll see you next week for Local 24 This Week.